I remember when the Assassin's Creed series was going to be a trilogy. Despite the fact that we had both Brotherhood and Revelations, Assassin's Creed 3 was going to be the finale to the series. That obviously ended up changing. The original ending to the series, believe it or not, would be Desmond taking down Abstergo, and then he and Lucy would leave the Earth during the 2012 apocalypse in a spaceship, and they would start a new civilization as an Adam and Eve kind of setting. And reading this out loud, I'm kinda glad they got changed because that sounds like a bad ending. But we're not here to talk about what could have been, no. Instead, we're here to take a look at this game 11 years later and to see how does it actually hold up. One major difference is that this game uses a different engine from the Ezio games, and you can clearly tell when you look at Desmond with his dead stare and vacant eyes. Oh, something terrible happened to him in the Animus because he looks like he aged a whole 10 years. Game engine aside, let's take a look at Assassin's Creed 3 and see how it fares, and I fucking swear that it better just not be the same gameplay but with one new feature. Like the previous games, we get a recap of the events that transpired, and it starts us off immediately at the end of Assassin's Creed Revelations, where Desmond and his assassin team along with Papa Miles arrive at the Grand Temple. The world's ending due to a massive solar flare, and whatever is inside this temple is going to help save everything from the end. The only problem is that they need to find a way to unlock the temple, and how convenient that another one of Desmond's ancestors had a connection to it the whole time. Meet Haytham Kenway. He's British. That's about it, really. No, there's more. Haytham is an important character in the story, but he also serves as the game's tutorial segment. With him, you'll get used to the controls, the game mechanics such as stealthing, eavesdropping, and you get to take part in a bit of combat as well. We start off in a theater where Haytham assassinates somebody and takes an amulet from them. He is then set off to the colonies in the Americas where he needs to find the purpose of this amulet. He meets with a younger Charles Lee, who helps him in this endeavor, and he also runs into the author of Advice to a Friend on Choosing a Mistress, Benjamin Franklin, who tells him of his almanac and how the pages are missing, and we can find them for him. Fucking of course. Haytham's part in the story is to set up the latter parts of the plot. He travels to the colonies and gathers co-conspirators to assist him in finding what is the Grand Temple. After saving some natives, he meets with one whose name I can't pronounce for the life of me. Godzizio?
I'm Godzizio.
Kodzizio?
Godzizio.
Just call me Zio.
He allies with Zio, but to gain her trust, he agrees to hunt down Edward Braddock due to him attacking native lands. After assassinating Braddock, Zio leads Haytham to the temple, but he lacks the proper key, so he can't really open it. There's probably something about assassinating someone together because Zio and Haytham share a kiss. I don't get romance. Returning back to his co-conspirators, Haytham establishes a chapter of his order in the colonies and formally recruits Charles Lee into it.
Very well. Charles, come, stand. Do you swear to uphold the principles of our order and all that for which we stand?
I do.
And never to share our secrets nor divulge the true nature of our work?
I do.
And to do so from now until death, whatever the cost?
I do.
Then we welcome you into our fold, brother. Together, we will usher in the dawn of a new world, one defined by purpose and order. Give me your hand. You are a Templar. May the Father of Understanding guide us.
May the Father of Understanding guide us.
This twist was actually really good back then, and playing this with a hindsight that Haytham was always a Templar, you can kinda see that there's been some hints to show it. For one, he always calls it the Order and not the Brotherhood, though I think some people might call it the Assassin Order. I'm not fully sure, I don't remember off the top of my head. And also the fact that he has a Templar cross on his cape just staring you in the face. He's also a Freemason. This, however, is where our time as Haytham comes to an end. We all knew that Haytham wasn't the main character for the game. It was revealed to us in the announcement trailer that the assassin would be of Native American descent, and a Native American Haytham is not. In fact, we don't even get to meet our protagonist until we're about 4 hours in, or at least 4 hours for me. Meet Rato Noketon, later known as Connor, shown here at 4 years old? No way, come on, he looks about 10 here. They let 4-year-old kids go out of the village to play hide and seek when they know it's dangerous? Well, this 4-year-old then runs into the Templars from earlier and Charles Lee, the same Charles Lee that Haytham recruited about 4 years ago, who decided to choke a child. Good news though, the 29-year-old Charles Lee doesn't just end the life of a 4-year-old, as Connor gets knocked out and wakes up later, only to find his village on fire. Connor attempts to save his mother, but his 4-year-old body couldn't lift the beams on her body and is taken away by another villager before the building collapses on him. Did I mention he's 4 years old here? Time passes and we have a 13-year-old Connor. Wow, this engine's just doing work. He doesn't look 13 here. He looks about 16 or so. You know who was 13 in an Assassin's Creed game? Petruccio. Now that's a 13-year-old. Who knows, maybe Connor here is actually 14. You know who else was 14 years old? This guy. Yeah, that's right. 17-year-old Ezio beat up a 14-year-old who was he engaged to his sister? Oh man. Anyway, where was I? Alright, after Connor goes hunting and gets supplies for his village, which is our tutorial for hunting, he talks with his village clan mother, who hands him an apple of Eden, and he meets Juno, who takes him on a little spirit journey. During his trip, he is told to seek out someone who has the assassin symbol and is shown the general direction by his clan mother. After traveling through the frontiers, we find this run-down little homestead where we meet with Achilles, who tells us to go away after we ask him to train us. It takes a bit of time to convince him, and all we had to do was fight off a few poachers in a thunderstorm before he tells us to go inside. Connor gets a rundown on the Assassin's Creed lore and is shown the Wall of Templars and recognizes his dad, which is a bit weird because I don't think Connor knew his dad before this. His mom might have told him, or Achilles was just really good with recapping the lore. Achilles says he'll train Connor and we'll see if he's fit to be an assassin, as Connor vows to kill every Templar on the wall, but before we become a proper assassin with a time skip or something, we have a few more missions to go through. Side note, he gets the name Connor from Achilles because Achilles says it's better to pass off as a Spaniard than as a native in colonial lands, which is rightly fucked. But that's the history. Keep in mind, we're still in the tutorial section part of the game. The world hasn't really opened up and won't open up until Connor himself is a full-grown man and dons the assassin outfit. We get tutorials about searching for clues, free running in trees, hunting, running the homestead. Again, lowering our notoriety. Again, naval missions. Again, no wait, that's actually new. The naval missions are actually kind of fun. Sailing feels a bit tough and weighty and the camera angle kind of sucks at times, but who knows, maybe we'll get an Assassin's Creed game with ship combat or something. Wink wink. One of the complaints I've seen for this game is the long and drawn out tutorial section, and it does feel like it drags on a bit. Where the other games would introduce new mechanics over time, we feel front loaded with things we don't feel like we would really need to do at the moment. After the extended tutorial, Connor's motivation is to hunt down all the Templars. Okay, I lied, is actually to hunt down Charles Lee. So much so that the mere sound of his voice triggers him and nearly sets him off into a rage. Back then, the big meme with this game is, "Where is Charles Lee?" Combat in this game feels faster than it did in the Ezio games, and it feels relatively more difficult given that enemies would form firing lines, giving you a limited time to grab another enemy as a human shield or hide behind cover, which sometimes was not as responsive for me. Apart from that, the combat still felt rather similar to previous entries, where you could counter hits, and if the enemy resists it, then you can disarm them and just start swinging at them and hopefully get a streak going. Connor would sometimes perform these double kills as well if two enemies were to attack at the same time, which gives you a neat little animation, and given that firearms are becoming more common in this era, Connor is the first playable assassin to have a proper gun, which allows us to perform a quick draw shot. Though the downside is that these are all muskets and flintlock pistols and take time to reload, which at that point I'm just going to keep using this tomahawk. The parkour on the other hand faced a few updates. It feels faster, though I'm not sure if it actually is, and we don't have our hook blade, which is arguably the best piece of a technology the assassins have created, and now that's lost to time. One new obstacle we have is the ability to run through buildings, which gives us a short cutscene of Connor entering, but not so much breaking. as it allows us to quickly get through the buildings without having to jump on the roof. Connor's also able to vault over fences and slide under certain obstacles without ruining the momentum of your run. One criticism I would give is that you would simultaneously feel both in control and have no control over your movements. While holding down the sprint button, Connor will run through the obstacles, but only if there's a safe path for him to jump to. This means that he won't jump to something that will cause him to take damage, such as a fall, unless you're also holding down the jump button. At first, parkour felt really fun, and it still does feel fun, but the rewarding aspect of it gets removed when you realize that what you have is essentially a safety net stopping you from getting hurt unless you press the "I'm an adult and I'll break my legs if I want to" button. This precision parkour also reveals an issue regarding level design. Leaving aside the city levels of New York and Boston for now, the frontier isn't really a fun place to travel about or parkour through. There's few buildings, but there is the ability to free run through trees. Connor could climb trees, scale rock faces, and run along branches, something Haytham couldn't do. But remembering that Connor won't jump into something harmful makes you realize that there's a few set paths to run across from tree to tree, which removes a lot of the freedom of movement that the series has shown in previous installments. Meanwhile, the cities of Boston and New York feel rather lacking compared to Italy, Constantinople, or the Middle East. Those cities feel much more densely packed, with multiple ways to traverse the city and obstacles along the way to make free running feel fun. But Assassin's Creed 3, the cities, while historically accurate, are not fun to look at and feel too low to the ground. The city design in and of itself is not bad per se, but in the context for an Assassin's Creed game, it's not really good, and given we're running around these cities in the frontier so often in this game, the lack of fun places to parkour really hinders the enjoyment. Man, America fucking sucks. I will say that the main highlight for me in this game would be the story and Connor's character. He might not be everyone's favorite assassin, he sure isn't mine, mine's Altair, but he's an interesting character given the story we've been told so far. Take what we know about the Assassins and the Templars. The Templars want to control, they take positions of power such as nobles and politicians and seek to have people under them as they unlock something greater. The Templars have been shown to be selfish, deceptive, outright evil, and the Assassins are fighting against that, which to us would make them be the good faction in the story. The Assassins don't take innocent lives, they empower the oppressed to rise up against the oppressors. They seek to make the people free, and the Templars to us are the opposite despite whatever words they may say. We only really start to see a much more noticeable shift in Templar attitudes with Assassin's Creed 3, where the Haytham sections have shown them to be much more reasonable, and as Connor kills each Templar throughout the game, we learn that they had good intentions with their actions. William Johnson wanted to buy native lands to protect them from the colonizers. John Pitcairn wanted to push for diplomacy to stop the war so that people won't have to die. And all this is to have us begin to question the Templars' actions. I mean, Thomas Hickey has... the Templars have been written far better in this game than they have in the previous one, and it shows when you're compared to Mr. Incest over here. Connor is a naive character. To put things into perspective, he was 20 years old when the Declaration of Independence was signed, which he was there for. Funny enough, he hasn't had the guidance that Altair or Ezio had along the way. He believed that if he did the right thing, then everything would work out. He believed he could save the world, put an end to the fighting, save his people, and be what is essentially a hero. And he comes to learn that it's not possible to do all of this. At one point, even berating Achilles and stating that it was due to him that the Brotherhood died in the colonies, but coming later to apologize to him as he sees the error of his actions. Connor is an idealist, and throughout the story, he sees that his actions cost him everything in the end. He loses his tribe, his friend, his father, his mentor, and all this changed him into the man that we see at the very end. On the other hand, we see that Haytham is far more utilitarian in that he is fine causing harm if it results in the most net happiness. We can see his actions as vile and ruthless, but he does these so he can protect the people and bring order for a better world. He is a more rational thinker as compared to other Templars who have just been, hey, we want to control the worlds and we're gonna do evil stuff, but trust us, it's for your own best goods. What the story of Assassin's Creed 3 does is make us look at the actions of both the Templars and the Assassins lessons to try and understand what's the best way to go about things and to ask who's even right in all of this. While the Templars want peace, is it worth it to have this order and essentially an iron fist ruling over so that this peace isn't disrupted? Or are the assassins right in contrast, where despite wanting the same thing, recognizing that having the people be free is a much better alternative, even though that freedom can lead to more conflict? It puts us in a morally gray area where you could argue for either side and create a more interesting and intriguing protagonists and antagonists. Except for Charles Lee though, something terrible happened to this man over the years since he became a Templar. The trajectory of this game's story would have also just been very different if he had just been nice to Connor when he first met him. We do have some modern day sections with Desmond where he gets to use more of his assassin skills, and these sections aren't really too long. In each of them, Desmond goes to collect power sources to help unlock the temple he and the others are in.
Where to?
Brazil.
These levels aren't really anything too exciting, and just gives us a bit of Desmond to not make him feel like he's just some prop. Vidic dies though, so I guess that's neat, and it's done in a way that makes you feel like a bit of a badass as you just walk into Abstergo's office. I feel like whenever somebody says, "give me the apple," the other person will just go, "okay," and just use the apple to kill everyone around them. I expect this to come up again in the future. After powering up the temple, we meet with Juno and Minerva and come to a dilemma. I say dilemma, but it's not really our choice. Desmond decides on his own. He can either let the world burn, and while many will die, some will remain, and Desmond can lead and teach them. But as Desmond passes himself, his words will become twisted as he becomes a posthumous religious figure, and everything will repeat all over again. Realizing that's not what he wants for everyone, he sacrifices himself to save the world. Desmond dies and Juno is set free. The world is saved, but there's now a new threat. Remember when I said originally that this was going to be a trilogy? Overall, Assassin's Creed 3 was, well, it's something. I don't know how to properly describe it, but it feels like it would have been better as like a book, a comic, a TV show. It was fine, but I'm probably just going to forget this experience down the line in a few months. It definitely isn't my favorite game so far. You can really start to see Ubisoft's formulaic design, and it does make things feel a bit stale, especially if you play these games back to back. You're gonna feel really tired and exhausted and burnt out, especially given the fact that these have been yearly releases ever since Assassin's Creed 2. It's not too long of a game if you only focus on the main story, and the additional objectives in these games' missions are also somewhat challenging. It's definitely the hardest that I've had so far. There are some fun moments in the game, but it feels like such a middling experience that this might just end up being a don't play again game. There's also the DLC of The Tyranny of King Washington, which is an episodic DLC released for the game with an alternate history of Washington getting an Apple of Eden and becoming a tyrant. I only played episode 1 before and never really had an interest in myself, but if people want more Assassin's Creed 3, then it's there for them. I also didn't bother with the side quests in the game because I ain't doing that shit. Hey everyone, I want to say thank you not just for watching this video, but also for over 200 subs. That means a lot to me that you watch and like these videos, and I hope you enjoy some of the other stuff that I have planned. There's going to be more Assassin's Creed videos in the future, but my schedule is sort of up in the air right now. If this is your first Assassin's Creed video on this channel, then why not check out this playlist I have with the other videos I made so far. The standard YouTube fare: if you liked the video, then leave a like. If you didn't like it, then leave a dislike. Write a comment down on what you thought about the game. And if you want Tyranny of King Washington, because I did leave that out, so let me know below and subscribe so you can watch that video in the future and some of the other stuff that I'm going to make then. Take care everybody, I'll see you all next time, and remember that I appreciate you.